Елена, давайте мы будем начинать. Если люди будут подключаться, будете их запускать, хорошо?
Хорошо.
Пожалуйста, можете запускать презентацию свою.
Ага. Пока никого, да, кроме?
Пока нет. Ничего страшного, пусть будет в виде записи, может быть, потом посмотрят.
Так, ну, для начала я поделюсь ссылкой на quizzes. Если все-таки кто-то сможет присоединиться, мы проведем небольшой интерактив. Если же нет, то в такой ознакомительной форме больше.
Да, пожалуйста, хорошо. Начинаем вебинар. Елена Муштакова, магистрантка 2-го года обучения. Сейчас в данный момент еще находится в Турции на мобильности академической, но скоро возвращается. И сегодня представит нашему вниманию вебинар. Пожалуйста, Елена, представьте свою тему. Вам слово.
Спасибо, Маргарита Вячеславовна. Всем добрый день. Тема сегодняшнего нашего вебинара Designing and Maintaining Language Materials. И сейчас начнем демонстрацию. Скажите, пожалуйста, все ли видно?
Да, видно.
All right. So welcome to our webinar again. So good afternoon, everyone. So today we'll be talking about designing and maintaining language materials. And first of all, so let's start with the introduction. So in modern language teaching and learning, materials design and implementation is a major enterprise. So the area where principles of applied linguistic theory, the demands of classroom practice, and the realities of commercial production lie uneasily together. And there is no doubt that the role of materials in language teaching is highly important. So, and within this webinar, so we'll try to describe basic principles of materials design for English learning and teaching. And so we'll give some information. We'll give some information about different types of materials, so which can be used in language teaching. And so we'll provide some basic points of materials adaptation and design. So dear participants, who have just joined, please follow the link in quizzes, so which you can see in our message chart. Okay. Well, so let's move on. So here we can see the content. And so as I've already said, so today we'll talk about principles and procedures of materials development, classifications of language teaching materials, advantages and drawbacks of using authentic materials. So we'll talk about criteria for selecting teaching materials, and also so the main point which we are going to talk about is the process of materials design and how to design materials, so which models can we use while designing, and so we'll see some suggested materials for speaking, for developing speaking and listening skills. Well, so let's begin with principles and procedures of materials development. So first of all, we should consider that in language teaching, anything which can be used by teachers or learners to facilitate the learning of language can be defined as materials. So the creation of materials to be used in the program, so within teaching program, is considered as one of the essential steps in teaching English, of course. And according to Pakan, there are three main ways it can be done. So in short, selecting, adapting, and developing. So today we will be mostly talking about developing and creating materials. So and so how to classify, how language materials can be classified. So most people associate the term language learning materials with course books. So we usually use them while teaching, and course books can be defined, and course books reflect so the main experience of using materials by teachers. However, the term can be used to refer to anything which is used by teachers or learners to facilitate the learning of a language, as it was mentioned before already. In other words, so they can be anything which is deliberately used to increase the learner's knowledge and experience of the language and motivation as well. So, here we can see classifications of language teaching materials. So, as we can see from the diagram, so grammar books, so YouTube videos, even emails, discussions between learners, so photocopied exercises, so readers, dictionaries, instructions given by a teacher, everything can be considered as language materials. But so here we can see one more classification, so which is more structured. So generally, all language materials can be divided into three large categories. So they are course books, supplementary materials, supporting materials. So supplementary course books, I guess it's clear. Yeah, what does it mean? So as teachers will all use them. And supplementary materials include teacher's book and workbook usually, and supporting materials. So these are pictures, flashcards, posters, charts, tapes, and so on. Like many different things. And now, dear participants, so just a moment. So can you see the link in our charts? Excuse me, can everybody hear me?
Да, слышно.
Okay. So can you see the link? And so can you join our quizzes? All right, so let's move on. So, okay. So, and also, so we should talk about authentic and created materials. Most people and researchers as well say that authentic materials are beneficial for using within the classroom, and authentic materials so refer to the use in teaching of texts, photographs, video selections, and other teaching resources that were not specially prepared for pedagogical purposes, and created materials. So this term refers to textbooks and other specially developed instructional resources, and of course, so both of them have their advantages and disadvantages. And so let's mostly talk about advantages and drawbacks of authentic materials. So first of all, so as we can see from the chart, so authentic materials have a positive effect on learner motivation. So and they also provide authentic information about the target culture. So they provide exposure to real language, and so they relate more closely to learners' needs, as researchers state, and they support a more creative approach to teaching. But at the same time, authentic materials have their drawbacks. For example, created materials can also be motivating for learners, so not just authentic ones. And authentic materials often contain difficult language and unneeded vocabulary items because so these items they are not selected for the certain level, for the certain proficiency level of students. So that's why it can be quite challenging to use such kind of materials. And created materials are generally built around a graded syllabus, and they usually build around also the certain proficiency level. And using authentic materials is a burden for teachers because while using authentic materials, teachers should also adapt these materials and take into consideration students' needs and their proficiency level, and only afterwards so use authentic materials. So so let's talk about criteria for selecting teaching materials for classroom use. So first of all, the first principle, the materials should make clear the link between the classroom and the wider world. The materials foster independent learning. So the materials focus on the learner and on the learning process. So and materials should be selected within a certain theme. So the materials are readily available. The materials accord with the learner's expressed needs, and the materials can be used at more than one level of difficulty, so which is quite challenging to find such kind of materials and to select them. And the pedagogical objectives of the materials also should be clear. Well, so, and let's go to the role of materials. So the main role of materials is, so materials can be considered as a resource for presentation and a source of activities for learner practice and communicative interaction, a reference source for learners on grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and so on. So materials can be considered as a source of stimulation and ideas for classroom activities, and also materials is a support for less experienced teachers who have yet to gain so the confidence, gain in confidence. Well, and so since we have already talked about use of authentic materials, and this is quite challenging to select them, to adapt them. So one more option which all teachers have is to design materials. So, and here we can see the scheme of, to say in other words, the process of materials design. So, or a materials design model. So this model consists of 4 main parts. So which are input, contents, language, and task. So let's talk about each of the components in detail. So first of all, input. So what does it mean? This may be a text, dialogue, video recording, diagram, or any piece of communication data. So depending on the needs, so which were defined in the analysis of students' needs. And so the input provides a number of things. First of all, stimulus material for activities, new language items, correct models of language use, a topic for communication, opportunities for learners to use their information processing skills, and opportunities for learners to use their existing knowledge. And the next one, so content focus. So content focus can be considered as linguistic and non-linguistic. So language is not an end itself, so we should take it into consideration, but a mean of conveying information and feeling about something. So non-linguistic content should be designed to generate meaningful communication in the classroom. So then language focus. So the ultimate aim is to enable learners to use language, but it's useless to give learners communicative tasks and activities for which they don't have enough of necessary language knowledge. And finally, task. So the purpose of language learning is language use. So in this case, materials should be designed to lead towards a communicative task in which learners use the content and language knowledge they have built through the certain unit. So, so here we can see several steps in material design. So, and the first step is identification. So identification of learners' needs. So we should know what what drawbacks or within the language our students have, and so what should be improved. So what kind of improvements they need. So, and after identifying, so these spots or these gaps in their knowledge, so we should go to this next step, which is called exploration. Exploration of the area of need problem in terms of what language, what meanings, what functions, what skills should be improved. And after exploration in detail, so we should go to contextualization or contextual realization of the proposed new materials. So, what does it mean? It means to find certain ideas, it means to find appropriate context or appropriate texts, so which are gonna work for students. And the next step is pedagogical realization. So within this step, we should think how to use these materials, how to find appropriate exercises and activities, and what instructions should we give so within these exercises. And the final step, which we should take into consideration while material design is physical production of materials. So especially when we work with young learners, so materials should be colorful, so they should be attractive, and also we should consider what kind of materials are we going to use, visuals, what size of materials, so what type of materials, and so on. So, and now as for designing worksheets, so and the main function of worksheets. So after we have decided and after we've been through all the steps, so we can start designing worksheets. And generally, worksheets are designed to facilitate learning through activity and to raise awareness of how the language works through an activity of some kind and to provide additional practice. And here in the chart, so we can see different types of worksheets, so which are handwriting, spelling, punctuation, and pronunciation. So handwriting worksheets are usually used for young children or learners whose native language so uses a different script. So such kinds of handwriting worksheets can be used to improve or to develop such kind of skills. Spelling worksheets, so we all know that so it's quite challenging in English. So for example, the spelling rules governing the pluralization of nouns ending in y, so it can be improved. And punctuation, so for example, inserting full stops and capital letters into a punctuated text. And pronunciation activities, so these are exercises which require learners to match words containing the same vowel sound, mark stress syllabus, and so on. Well, and here we can see so grammar and vocabulary worksheets. So while developing grammar and vocabulary worksheets, so we should first of all, we should take into consideration the objectives. So and grammar teaching is motivated by two main objectives. So the first one is to transmit knowledge, and the second one to facilitate skills development. And here we can see so grammatical components of efficient communication, so which consists of two parts, formal fluency and functional fluency. So while designing and while developing grammar worksheets, so we should also take it into consideration. For example, formal fluency consists of knowledge of how forms combine to make up the structures of the language, and formal fluency also includes the skill to combine these forms accurately and properly. So functional fluency includes knowledge of relationships between forms and meanings, and restrictions on uses of forms. And also functional fluency includes the skills to choose and use an appropriate form. Well, as for vocabulary worksheets, there is a wide range of vocabulary learning activities which cover the various aspects of what is involved in knowing a word. So, and here we can see the table of various vocabulary materials. So basically, they can be divided into three main categories: form, meaning, and use. So as for form, so these activities can develop speaking skills. It can be in the spoken form, in the written form, word parts, and form meaning connection. So so if we talk about meaning, so it can be concept and reference, such as finding common meanings, so choosing the right meaning, and so on, and associations, so such as finding substitutes, classifying words, and so on. And as for use, so the category use, all the materials can be divided into grammar, collocates, and constraints on use. So, and we can see some examples. For example, as for collocates, so we can use matching collocates, classifying items, and concordance, and finding collocates. As for constraints on use, so we can use identifying constraints, classifying words under style headings, and so plenty of other activities, so which we can see in our chart. Well, and also according to Thomason, so the design features of vocabulary activities will directly affect the conditions for learning that occur. So and so we should also take into consideration that focus on language items so should be presented. Focus on language system also should be presented. We can use group work and data gathering or gap filling activities. So, here we can see the list of suggested materials and activities for listening skills. So, and while creating and developing so materials for listening skills, so we can choose from this list. And for example, here we can see exercises for developing top-down listening. So let's choose some of them. For example, listen to conversations and identifying the setting. So look at pictures of people speaking and guess what they might be saying or doing. Also, complete the story, then listen to how the story really ended. So listen to a part of a conversation and infer the topic of a conversation. So these are just several activities which can be used while developing worksheets for listening skills. So here we can see some more materials. For example, listening to a group of teachers acting as scene from a play. So this is quite challenging, but at the same time it's useful. So also listening to the teacher telling so jokes, anecdotes, or genuinely listening to a teacher can develop listening skills. So listening to other learners reading aloud texts which they have enjoyed studying, but this activity can be used while teaching students with high level proficiency. So because reading aloud should be correct, and listening to other learners doing a prepared presentation on something which is really interests them, and listening to presentations, discussions, debates on controversial topics relevant to the learners, and engaging in discussion with their peers on controversial topics. So, and as for developing speaking skills, so what materials can be used? So first of all, we have a proposed framework for effective speaking materials, so which consists of 6 main parts. So the first one is focus on both sharing and processing information. So sharing information means discovering missing information from one's knowledge gap by learning about it from one or more partners. And processing information means communicating by exchanging what belongs in learners' individuality by allowing learners to use their own backgrounds and personalities. So both of them should be used while developing speaking materials, and both of them should be reflected. So the next point is respect for learner control of meanings. So materials should facilitate self-directed learning and respect learners' personal decisions. So potential for a range of learning choices. So the significance of allowing all the learners' decisions is to train learners in developing active participation, responsibility, autonomy, and wider personal involvement. So all of these points should be used, and they will facilitate real-life communication. So the next point in our framework is concern for learner affectivity. So affectivity can be involved by building into tasks some degree of controversy, and it provokes learners to exchange different thoughts, their ideas, share diverse values, and so on. So the next one, utilization of individual knowledge. So the content of speaking tasks should be so familiar to learners that they can fully understand and discuss the topic. So if the topic is too complicated for learners, or if they don't have any basic knowledge, so it's going to be quite tough to talk about such kind of topic. And the next one is rehearsing features of spoken discourse. So materials for speaking skills therefore must encourage and enable learners to process speech by experiencing use, by making quick decisions under the pressure of time, and by making do with limited vocabulary. So, and the final one is moving beyond the initiation, response, feedback model. So this is one of the most famous models. And effective materials should be designed in a way that push classroom talk beyond this model. So by turning that feedback into question or an inspiring statement, so which will invite further talk from the learner, so that output is stretched to the maximum degree which is possible. Well, and so let's go to the conclusion. So materials are an essential part of any course, of course. So in order to develop appropriate materials for a student course, so various aspects such as course goals and objectives, so needs of learners should be definitely taken into consideration. And so as we have already discussed, so there are many models, there are many steps which should be taken into consideration while developing effective and useful classroom materials. So here we can see the list of references, and thank you for your attention, dear participants. So I guess we have some Sorry, some so can you hear me? Okay. So, dear participants, if you are here, so we also have a kind of quiz, interactive quiz. So I will share a link. So if you have a chance to follow, so please do. So if not, I guess so we're done with our today's presentation. So if you have any questions, any comments, suggestions, so we are ready to listen to you. Okay. So, Marita Vячеславовна. All right. So, if there are no questions, no comment, no suggestions, so I guess that's it for today. So thank you for joining and thank you for listening our webinar. So have a good day and goodbye.